stuff, how many of you have ever heard that a chain is only as strong as its weakest link?
Yeah.
You ever heard that? So I'm going to come back to that phrase, but another phrase that we sometimes hear is, it comes from the ancient Hebrew and Christian scriptures, and it says, honor your father and mother, right? Honor your father and mother. And that's easier for some of us than others, because some of us either grew up without our father, grew up without a mother, or we're in a situation where they weren't there for us, or maybe they even abused us. So I wasn't raised in a religious home or any of that sort of stuff. So when I first heard that phrase, honor your father and mother, I was like, oh, that's cute, that's interesting. But how do I honor something that I don't know? How do I honor a person I haven't even met, right? So when I became a father myself, and as you all know, myself and Evan and Kusima, we try and promote the Project Fatherhood program here at Homeboy Industries. And so a light went on when I became a father myself. I'm a father of 4 grown sons. And when I was with them, my oldest son was going through a real crisis at one point. He was experimenting with drugs, he was on the street, he was having a lot of problems. I ended up getting the call you don't want to get. End up over at the hospital at Cedars-Sinai, and he's on one of those things that they drag him in on the ambulance. And I look in his face, and what I see is last time I saw my father, he had tubes all in him, and he was in a VA hospital dying from his excessive alcoholism. That was when I was like 4 years old. So I look at the face of my son, and I see his same facial outline. And I thought, wow, this is a trip. I'm looking at my father right here. I'm looking at someone strung out on drugs, having a really difficult time with their life. And growing up without a dad, every time I saw my single mom who struggled working 10 hours a day in a factory, having to get on government assistance, getting evicted out of apartments because she couldn't pay rent, all that stuff, I blamed it on my father. So I was walking around with a lot of resentment towards my father. And shortly after this time when my son was going through his crisis, a spiritual person told me to do this exercise. They said, write down whatever things you need to say to your father. Write those down, good, bad, and the ugly. Go to the beach, light that letter on fire, and imagine that those fumes from that fire are raising up to heaven. And wherever my father's at, he's picking up that vibe, he's picking up that thought. And when I did that, I felt something shift, right, in my relationship with my sons and in my own heart. And so the catcall came on this when I had a grandson. And when I saw my grandson, it kind of clicked. I knew in my mind, intellectually, that I was just a link in a chain. The only thing I know about my father's background is that his parents were immigrants from Ireland, which means they came over after a famine that almost killed millions of people in Ireland. I know that if they survived Ireland, my ancestors, they had endured 700 years of occupation and colonialism from the British. They survived all that stuff so I could be here, so I could be there for my son, so I could be there for my grandson. And whoever you are, people of African descent, stolen from their countries, dragged here in chains, 20 million that died at the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean in the Middle Passage, all of them sacrifice, so we could be standing here. If you're Latino, that means you're probably part indigenous. And if you're part indigenous, you were part of the indigenous kingdoms that made up Turtle Island. And when the conquest started 500 years ago, there was an act of extermination to take your people out through the edge of the sword and through disease. But somehow, here you are standing here. They paid forward for you. They struggled so that we could take a breath. And when I looked in my grandson's eyes, I saw, man, this ain't about you. This is not about you. This is about what happened before and honoring the ancestors that struggled so that we could take a breath. And it's about our descendants that come after us. And so I would challenge us all to remember that we have a choice. Every day when we get up, we can be the weakest link or we can be the strongest link. And so when I get up every day, I know that I owe something to those ancestors that paid forward for me. And even more than them, I owe for my descendants there that come after me. We all have that sacred gift that we're here just passing the baton along to these generations. So I would ask that we would each day just remember that we're just a link in a chain, and we need to keep pressing on and being strong for those that are going to come after us. Thank you.